So, what major label is your favorite musician on? I'm guessing they're not on one. Now, this is a little different from my usual video and surf talk, but I'm also a musician. All the music you hear in all my movies and all my videos, that's all my music. I've made over 100 plus songs. You can go find them on the Spotify's and the YouTubes and the iTunes and the Apple Music, etc. But what I've really come to learn about the music industry, as I do a quick sound check, and I sound amazing per usual, is that these days, none of your favorite artists are on these major records or on these labels. And it's not because they're not talented. It's not because they can't be marketed. It's not because they don't have the star appeal. It's quite the opposite of that. There's actually an influx of talent. Go on to Spotify or Apple Music or any of the places you listen to music right now, and you're going to be bombarded with a ton of talented musicians and a ton of just awesome bands. Now, a lot of these bands, and when I'm saying like record labels, I'm talking about like Warner Brothers and Universal, like these major labels. The Taylor Swift, the pop stars are on. These bands, these artists, they have created their own labels. They are just publishing their own music, kind of like I do. So I have a record label. It's called Gone Surfing Records. And when I release music, I just release it under my label via a distribution publishing platform on the internets. Now, even 15, 20 years ago, before there were internets and before there was Spotify, the only way to make music publicly available was to get onto a major label and have them distribute your music to the world. Now that that's no longer a bottleneck, you don't have to get discovered by Warner Brothers to have your music go mainstream. Really, these days, you don't want to go mainstream because, like in many other entertainment categories right now, the bigger you get, the harder you're going to fall. In Australia, they call it, I think, the tall poppy syndrome, where essentially the taller poppies out in the fields, the taller the poppy gets, the quicker it's going to get cut down to meet the height of the other poppies. Now, I think music's super individualistic in this sense because technology has sped up to such a point now where you can be like a 14-year-old kid in your bedroom and your laptop has the capability to do things that only 20 years ago you needed a whole 1,000 square foot studio to accomplish. You can do that. You can even do that on like one of these little tablets now. You can make, there's GarageBand, there's apps. You can open up some app and start making beats on a little tiny device that is thinner than your finger, and your output is going to sound a lot better than if you went into one of those 1,000-foot studios and tried to make something in there with the analog equipment, etc. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot because, like, as a musician, like, I kind of get inspired by other musicians. But what I've kind of run into is that, like, there is just so much good music out there that really it doesn't matter, like, how good of a musician you are anymore, because there's so much competition that it really ends up being more about some of the other things. And that's what the record labels have usually done in the past. And these days it's like on steroids in terms of, like, you're not going to be a big pop star anymore unless you're beautiful, unless you have certain characteristics, unless you're probably pretty extroverted, unless you can put on a face, you can speak in front of people, you can do interviews, you can be probably pretty PC now. A lot of these things have to line up for you to be on this record label. So 4/5 of the artists have kind of just even subconsciously been like, well, screw that. I'm not going to wait to get on a record label to go make my music. I'm going to use the tools I have with the internet, and now I can just bypass that whole record label part of it and actually just have people listen to my music more kind of like C to C, or even a B to B concept where the business is the person listening as well. It's one less middleman. So this isn't really to do with like how royalties of streaming and all that hasn't been adding up, because that was kind of the main thing that paid artists was the record label, even if it wasn't necessarily sales, and then the touring as well. So now that record labels are somewhat dead and not really in the picture, now touring is how artists make money. But you can build up a big enough fan base and go tour without the need of having a major record label. You can get enough of a streaming audience to have an audience in your local city, and then actually keep building it to the major cities, and then go on tour and have an audience in each city that you see, pretty much based on your analytics on your streams. Now, I really like this too, because a lot of like the artists that I listen to are essentially these like younger kids that got really good at making beats on their computer, and then they got really good at kind of using like Kanye West style vocalizers and synthesizers and auto tune. And it's gotten to this point now where I think we're past like T-Pain made auto tune artistic, and then it kind of got just ran over. Or actually even Cher really kind of started that out, but other artists kind of took it and I think kind of destroyed it. But now there's this resurgence where it's being used in like kind of like how Future uses it, but even in a more artistic way. Like one artist I like to listen to, he'll change his whole vocal like frequency to where it's not like one auto tune the whole song, but he'll kind of like drop down to like a crazy low frequency and then kind of move up to a crazy high one, and then all within like one sentence. So it's really cool how some of these artists are using it more like an instrument. So their voice has become an instrument that they can now tweak and play with tuning, as opposed to having to even learn how to become like a really great singer. Now this does kind of get a little controversial, because like you can suck at singing and actually be a singer now. Well, that's what's kind of cool. Like the bar of entry into having a song on Spotify is so low now that if you have enough creativity and enough want and desire to create music, you can just still get a song on Spotify, and you can make a playlist where there is a Jay-Z song, your song, you know, Pop Smoke song, and then another one of your songs. Like it, there's never been a time where you could just skip that whole getting on a major label. Now you can be heard by the masses, by the world. And pretty much like 4/5 of the artists I listen to are essentially like SoundCloud rappers. They're pretty much people that like DIY'd their career, and a lot of them now have big followings. And like a great example is this the whole like Drain Gang, Blady, Young Lean people. That crew pretty much like did that, and then they made a song with Skrillex, which is pretty wild. Even Skrillex in himself was first in a like a punk band, is how he got his kind of rise to fame. But they were from first to last. They weren't really like on a major label. I mean, I can look it up if they eventually got like a side proxy onto one. But still, it was like in the screamo kind of counterculture, people weren't really getting onto like Sony or something until they got big enough to where they probably stopped screaming, and then they could be that. But it was pretty interesting how like Skrillex became the biggest musician in the world for a while, and even someone like Diplo, where they got a lot of their first kind of like hits and stuff off a website called SoundCloud, which really started changing the game, where you could make beats in GarageBand or Logic or Ableton with just a computer, maybe a MIDI keyboard. So you could be like a great musician and know like, oh, I know what I need to do, but I don't have the tools to do it. So, and then the tools were given to us. And then you go from their computer upload to SoundCloud, and then that was it. And you actually could build a following by totally skipping the needing to find a distribution partner or needing to find someone to make the actual CDs, etc. So part of me is like happy that the music industry is kind of, I'm not eating my words here, but it's kind of collapsed. And now I'm not happy for all the producers and engineers and singers and managers and talent agents and all this. But it's just great to be able to now see kids that are in their bedrooms making these beats, and then a year later their beat could be on Spotify and get heard by Diplo, and he thinks, oh wow, this kid's really talented. I'm gonna give him an email and see if he wants to have a small feature on my next CD or something. Like that has never happened before, because you couldn't be seen without being on a record label. And now that these are non-existent anymore, in the terms of like the artists that can be in the world now, it's a really cool time. And I really appreciate being able to listen just to random people that pop up on my Apple Music. And I can say, oh, they have an album from last year. Oh, that's pretty cool. And it's all just DIY. You go to their record label, and what is it? It's just some record label they created for them or their friends. And it really has kind of like democratized the music industry. Now, the problem is now it's harder to make it a career and etc. So that there is a kind of a weird balance act going on now where like the old industry and this new industry is colliding, and everyone's trying to figure out how to still make it as an artist, how to still be a musician. Now, I think this does parallel great with movie making and filmmaking. And then once you kind of get this new AI involved, where the AI can essentially make songs and make movies, it is gonna be super challenging, because now it's like, how do we coexist in this world, this kind of saturated world of art, where now we're competing against robots to make good art, and these robots, they're pretty smart. So um, I think that's why it's super important, and there's no better time where it's, if you're a creative person, like go for it now. Like start making your music in GarageBand or Logic, or start making your videos, or start writing, or start before the total collapse of all of us getting to be artistic. If you have any of these desires, now's a great time to do it, because all the middlemen have been taken out. You can write a book, put it on Amazon. You don't need any middleman. You can publish a video and put it on YouTube. You don't need a studio to tell you or show you or give you a platform to publish your movies anymore. I think that's was the point of this kind of stream was as these industries kind of change, like understand that like now there's no lower entry, there's no lower barrier to entry. Like you can get in and you can be a YouTuber, and you can be bigger than NBC and ABC as a single person with a YouTube channel, which 5 years ago, people were like laughing at people on YouTube saying, you're not going to be bigger than like, like Warner Brothers and Fox and all these major labels with millions of dollars and infrastructure being thrown at them. Like you just live in like a little apartment. Like how's your influence going to be bigger than these major networks? And now you see it. Go on to YouTube, look at the like to dislike ratio, look at the plays. There are YouTubers that get tons of more plays than like all of them combined. And look at the validity and the authenticity that they can actually provide. And if you can build an audience that trusts you, there's gonna be people that trust you more than a major news network, just because you don't have the backing of like these billion-dollar companies breathing down your neck, making sure you say the right thing. You can speak freely still. Now you have to kind of wind in and out of like YouTube's like demonetization stuff to not say like these certain words that could get you demonetized. But there still is a level of like freedom to what you're allowed to do. And because some company isn't gonna dictate your opinion, your audience can respect your authenticity. So I think in the end, the authenticity that artists get to have now without major record labels and movie studios and like publishing novel thing for books is you get to be like more authentic. and people can really kind of see what you're going for. And creative wise, you can like really go for some stuff. And that's what I really appreciate about a lot of these like newer musicians of the last 5 to 10 years, that they're going for some like crazy stuff. Like the whole Drain Gang dudes who are like pretty much like in sync mixed with like a rap group. Like you would think like this sucks. Like what is this? This is stupid. But they just kept doing it, and then eventually now they're all like still doing their thing, and they made a song with Skrillex. Like I don't see any higher you can get if that's your like motive, or that's your like thing you're doing is making rap beats and rapping on them, and you make a song with one of like the biggest producers in the world who changed the whole game of music. So it's pretty cool, and it keeps me motivated. And again, like every artist I listen to on Apple Music right now is like, besides like classic people like Radio Department or something, it's just these young SoundCloud rappers, or these like younger singers, or just people that did their own thing, and now they have an audience from doing their own thing, and they did that all without those evil record labels. But appreciate everyone for watching this somewhat different Hero Journey show today. My goal with these live streams is to talk, surf talk, video gear talk, some music talk, entertainment. I appreciate everyone for tuning in again. Till next time, peace.